It's really hard for me to imagine that we've been at this for almost a year. We've been going through this, the training of the 12 by A.B. Bruce, and well, haven't always said everything that he said, but I've covered the high points of it, the mountain peaks that he covers, and I've thrown in some of my own ideas, particularly towards the end. I put in some application, and I think the reason that I need to do that is so often people who are in ministry really, on the surface, they understand things, but in the background, they don't. Today, we're going to look into a passage of scripture that we've looked into before, and we talked about before, and I'm sure this particular individual that I'm going to refer to, who will certainly go unnameless, that will certainly go nameless, I'm sure he's preached on this subject. I'm sure he's delved into it, and he's quite articulate and capable of it. But the situation was this. He told me privately at one point in time that at a church banquet, he wanted to exhibit the characteristic of servanthood, so he picked up a few plates from some people to take them to the kitchen to return them so they could be washed. And someone at the table said, "Oh, no, Pastor, you must not do that kind of menial work." And they grabbed the plates out of his hand and took them to the kitchen, thinking they were being servants. He was really disassembled by that. He wanted to show them that he too was a servant, and that they didn't have to serve him. Well, there's the problem. It wasn't real servanthood. It was servanthood on the outside, but not servanthood truly from his heart. And the fact that he remembered it and was upset by it illustrates that he really wasn't serving anybody. He was just really putting himself out there as a show for people to think that he was serving. At least that's my read on it. I'm not the judge. I can't tell you what is in somebody's heart. But I have a counselor friend who has counseled a lot of pastors down through the years. And he thinks a lot of the pastors, as many as 1/3 of the pastors that he has counseled, had a problem with narcissism. I understand from the reading that there's a question you can ask a narcissist that will give you the answer as to whether they're a narcissist. If you ask them, "Are you a narcissist?" they'll say yes. They think it's a good thing that the world should pay attention to them, that they should be the center of attention. Clearly, Jesus didn't see that. Now, you know this story from John chapter 13 about Jesus washing the disciples' feet. So we're just going to touch on just the bare bones of it, and then hit some applications when we get down to the end. You know the story about how Jesus did it. If you don't, you got to go read it yourself. I'm not going to spend time on it. This incident, only recorded by John, where Jesus demonstrates servanthood by being the master who is willing to serve. The significance of the act is somewhat clear, but apparently not clear to everybody. There was a symbolism in this act that he took on the job of the lowliest slave. And he, at the Upper Room event, they were kind of debating who was going to be the greatest in the kingdom, and Jesus was upset by it. And he said, "You call me master, and I am." And so he accepted the fact of who he was, but that also he came to serve. We have in Jesus his authority combined with his humility. Some people will think that, because they have some level of authority, that it matters. Well, the authority that people give you really doesn't matter. The only authority that really matters is the authority that you have as an emissary of the King of Kings, serving him. Jesus understood his identity, but was willing to demonstrate humility in ways that they couldn't understand. Now, Jesus commands them to imitate him. I've washed your feet. You should wash other people's feet. Some have taken that literally, and it may make a good symbol for recognition of people going forward. Some have turned it into an ordinance, and some just do it as a demonstration. but it doesn't have the same meaning, even though it might be a little embarrassing for you to have your feet washed or to wash other people's feet. You're not a slave. You're not a lowly house servant at the lowest rung of the ladder, washing other people's feet. So even though you might feel it a little bit, that there's some kind of humiliation in the thing, you don't understand at all that Jesus said, like, you got to get this, guys. You've got to become those who are servants, not just on the surface, but that you do it without even knowing you're doing it. It's behind the scenes in your personality. It's just something you do and that you live out when nobody's watching at all. And there is our natural tendency to try and say, well, you can't do, and just rationalize away the fact that we don't serve people. And, our society honors people who show power, not people who show service. And sometimes people will say, well, you can't let others be you can't let yourself be a doormat in front of other people. And I say, you can't? Why can't you? Well, you'll never get ahead. So what is getting ahead? Getting ahead isn't moving up the food chain in the society. It isn't getting to the place where you're the CEO, where you have a maximum impact over a big company or something of that nature. We really have to come at every level, wherever we are, from the greatest to the least to the greatest in the society, as being those who are here to serve. That's what Jesus wanted us to do. For the needs of other people, not for your own needs. And of course, it's not easy for us to adopt that attitude 100% of the mind in our minds. These ideas sneak up within us saying, why don't they respect me more, and so on. But this is something where our behavior, our conduct, cannot consistently lag behind what we know. There's three levels here. That we have the concept and the content of what we know, and we have how we are convicted about that content, and then it's how do we act it out. And the way we measure is by behavior. It's not measured by what we know, whether we can one-up somebody in a debate and have a famous YouTube channel because we've been out there debating the university students and knocking them dead. It's not humility. Humility might be out there on the university campus. It might be speaking before thousands of people, but it's demonstrating from your heart that you know that you too are nothing but a sinner saved by grace. Jesus, in this passage, indicates that the sense of completion, happiness, contentment in life comes from being a servant, not from being a master. And all that really matters is that he, at the end of the day, will say, well done, good and faithful servant. I have said to people, I'm not anticipating a well done, but I would like to get a pretty good, Gary, when I get to heaven. But I'm not sure that as a servant I have served as much as I could or should have served. I have often turned away from the possibilities of aggrandizement on bigger platforms. I'm not afraid of them, but I just haven't seen it being a good fit for me. And I'm doing this on a huge global platform today, not because I believe that I'll get 10,000 subscribers. Actually, after 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, did you know this? That you, in fact, can stick in advertising and start making money off of advertising. Sure, I'd like to get to 1,000 subscribers and maybe have a little money to pay for the costs of my ministry, but it's not of my primary concern. My primary concern is for you, even though I don't know who you are right at this moment, who is watching. It's a one-to-one relationship that we have. Even though it's a one-way relationship, it's a one-to-one relationship. You're looking me in the eye. I wish I could look you in the eye. And get in touch with me, and maybe we will. Life's meaning comes in the approval of Jesus, not on the approval of other people or how much money you make or where you stand in the society. Now, when you know more of this, as James says, we covered last week, many of you assume to be teachers because you'll be judged by a higher standard. The more you know, the higher the judgment that you are under. And that I find really scary because I have learned more and more, and I want to be one who lives up to what I've learned, and I trust that you do too. And if not, you need to take a look in your own heart. Do you feel a little twinge of, well, maybe I'm doing this for me a little bit? You got to put your heart and life into it. You've got to leave it all out there, serving the Master in every way you can. And, it isn't a situation where you have this knowledge and therefore can say, I can one-up you. It's much deeper than that. Jesus washed Judas's feet. He knew all along who Judas was going to turn out to be, that we have found out. We had a level of disgust with Judas. Jesus said, your friend, when he was about to leave the meeting, Jesus treated him, even though Judas was putting the knife in Jesus' back, Jesus patiently gave him the opportunity and dealt with him with the same grace that he gave the other disciples, so they didn't know who Judas was going to be the betrayer. So this obviously made a lasting impact on the disciples, and the years that they spent with him were multiplied after he was gone, after they went back into heaven. And you know that they went out there after the power of the Holy Spirit had come upon them, and they made a magnificent difference in the world by serving him. It's important for us all that we understand an awful lot that a lot of people don't want to understand. First of all, you don't serve so that it'll work for you, and you can get that kind of situation where you behave humbly so that others will say he's humble. If they say you're humble and you are humble, well, accepted. But you don't do this because it's a sneaky way to get to the front of the line. You do it because it's who you are, because you've adopted the character quality of humility that Jesus wants for you and for me. There's always this difficulty of managing the position of your authority, the position that you hold, where others might look to you, but don't get in love with your own resume. Recognize the humility that needs to be recognized. When I was a young pastor, I had the great fortune of being, before we ever had children, of going to a conference at a beautiful conference ground. And Wendy and I were there, and it was kind of an uppity event. And one of the speakers who was there for the conference, that I'd never met, but I'd read his books, and he was very, very well known. We were walking down the path, and he said, "Good morning, I'm Ed." And I knew him as Dr. So-and-so. And he was just clearly, when nobody was looking, he was just Ed. He was a humble man, and I appreciated that example. It was kind of overwhelmed that I'd met this famous Dr. So-and-so. He's lived long since with the Lord. But he was a man who grasped what it was to actually be a servant. Jesus said the last shall be first, and there were several instances in which Jesus is known to have said, the first to be last, the last to be first. And there's one in Luke that I find really quite interesting, where he's asked the questions, Lord, are only a few people going to be saved? And he talks about that. And he says, you got to make every effort to get through the narrow door. And there'll be people at the time who say, no, I'm sorry. He will answer, I don't know you or where you come from. I don't even know your resume. And they'll say, we ate and drank with you. You taught in our streets. I was right there with you. I thought I had some fame because I was hanging onto your coattails. And he said, I don't know you or where you come from. Away from me, you evildoer. And I find that rather chilling, that there will be people, lots of people apparently, who will be in that category. And the last will be first, and the first will be last. Don't worry about it. If you think you're last, maybe that means you're first. If you think you're first, don't get all excited about it, because maybe you're actually last because you've got too big of an ego in the game. Your secret ambitions of maybe starting here and then moving there and getting the big guy's job. I have a friend right now who's having a difficulty with a staff member in his church, and I said, does he want to be the senior guy? And he said, yeah, I think so. And he may have to fire this guy, but he doesn't like his boss. His boss has achieved some level of significance. And he called me up brokenhearted about this man who he thought was going to be really useful or had been useful in the church, but somehow he had gotten this business of clamoring and a secret ambition and is trying to take my friend down, and he doesn't know what to do with it. Humble service is always going to be the enemy of what may be your secret ambitions. So make sure that you think clearly about who you are. All of us know things about ourselves that others don't know, but there are always things that we don't know about ourselves that perhaps others know, but perhaps nobody knows, but Jesus knows. And he knows who you are and what you are becoming. So what? What do you do with this humility thing? Well, you're going to have unfulfilled goals in life. Get used to it. You're going to have unmet expectations of other people who are going to fail you, the Judases of your life. Get used to that idea now. If you're young, you are not going to be the exception. There are going to be difficult circumstances. And I think one of the most difficult ones of all is that you're going to have unmotivated followers. You're going to be, and if you're in a church and you're leading, there are going to be people who just don't do what they should do. You're going to have the frustration of people who want to get elected, maybe as a deacon or an elder, and then they simply won't follow through on their job. That's the way it is. Love them anyway. Be patient with them. Treat them as the Bible tells you to treat them, and that includes rebuking people at the appropriate time. And perhaps you're unwilling to have the uncomfortable conversation to rebuke somebody because it might hurt your sense of pride itself. You've got to do what God has called you to do. And I want you to drill down deep in your own mind, as did Bruce. And when he wrote his book, he talks several times about this characteristic that we all need. So that's where we stand today. That's the lesson for today. I trust that you will think deeply about it. Go back and read John 13 quietly, slowly, and look for little nuggets in there that perhaps you haven't seen before. And perhaps the Spirit of God will well up within you a true spirit of humility, not something you work up, but something that comes because of his work in your life.